there is a difference in attitudes, of course, between people of different generations, which contributes to the generation gap. So I think you brought this up. What are the changing family dynamics and how do we deal with it? There is a difference between generation. Values are changing. We know importance is given to a lot of other things but were not given earlier. Family structure is diminishing. From the Indian traditional joint family, we have all moved into nuclear families. Overexposure. Your 1.5-year-old child is crying and you want to cook. What do? You hand over your mobile so that he calms down. You are exposing the child to your mobile from that age. Technology is actually babysitting the current generation, and that is the truth. Most parents tell us themselves that, I have no option, there is nobody at home, so when the child is crying and I need to do some work, I give the iPad to my child. That's the only way he calms down. So who is babysitting your child? It's not you, it's technology basically. There is, of course, positive side, increased responsibility sharing by fathers. Very much seen, there are a lot of males in today's audience, so there is responsibility sharing, but still I think females do most work, and I think all of you will agree to that. So, parents and children, there's alike. As I said earlier, most common mistake that parents do. This is something that every day I hear parents coming and telling, I did not have this at this age, my child has a mobile at 10-year-old. I keep telling my child, now is it the child's mistake? You gave him an iPhone at 10 years of age, so don't blame your child for it, you should blame yourself for it. Conversation regarding sex and drugs are definitely more comfortable than before. Power has shifted to children. All the decisions that we take are based on our children's choice, children's liking, etc. And there is a concept of weekend parents. Now most parents are working, so Monday to Friday everybody works, Saturday, Sunday you feel like a parent again, so weekend parent, and you try to make up for it by being, as we discussed earlier, the permissive parent. So it's not the quantity that you spend, the time that you spend, it's the quality of time. Even if you're working and you spend 1 hour with the child, that's good enough if you are actually with your child at that time. Problem of plenty. Every 12-year-old I see in the clinic now has a phone. Most of them actually have iPhones also. They have iPads at 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds having iPads. So they got those things before they even asked for it. So there is definitely a problem of plenty. And I won't blame the children if they turn into internet addicts. Definitely it's the parents to be blamed. So adolescents of today, how are they different from adolescents of some years ago? They're definitely more confident. They are independent. They're very assertive. That is something that I see in today's adolescents. They're very assertive. They're egoistic, they're self-centered, they're very tech-savvy, much more than all of us, definitely. They're sex-savvy as well. They're highly sensitive, emotional, impulsive, and experimentative. That is the adolescent of today, so be prepared for it. Your child is going to be like this. That is norm today. It's not abnormal, it's the norm of today. So there is, all of us are on Facebook, all our children are on Facebook. So, Facebook depression is a new concept that is being coined. You know that how does your adolescent develop his self-identity? Earlier it was, my parents said I'm looking good, my friend said I'm looking good. Today what is it? I put a picture on Facebook, I want to see how many likes and comments I get. So children are actually turning to social media for validation, for increasing their self-esteem, and that is harmful because today you may get 100 likes, tomorrow's picture may get only 5 likes and your self-esteem again takes away. So you should ensure that, from your actions, from your talking to them, you increase their self-esteem rather than they relying on it on social media.
Your parents are doing the same thing.
Yeah. Exactly. So, as I said, most of it is the parents' fault.
They are WhatsApp, everybody's on WhatsApp, Facebook.
Yeah,
they see the parents doing it.
They do it. So most of it is the parents' fault, and it's definitely not the child's fault, is what I tell every parent. So,
but after this thing of, when a child puts up an image and they get a lot of appreciation, and if parents have to counter it by appreciating a child gets an overdose appreciation. So the child, for every small thing that demands a lot of appreciation.
Yes.
Is that also a syndrome?
Yeah, praise, it depends. So many parents ask us, should I praise my child or not? If you go excessively praising your child, your child doesn't deserve it, but still you are the best child, or you're the, my prince, etc. So he gets very used to praise. But if you use praise, definitely praise is a very powerful weapon, but use it moderately and only when it is actually required. And like when we tell parents who have small children, when your child does something good, don't appreciate the child, do appreciate the action that he did. He did something, gave his toy to his brother. Appreciate him for that. Don't just say you are a good boy. You say you are a good boy because you did so and so. And that is the way his self-esteem starts increasing from young age itself. So that, that is...
So you are saying that don't appreciate the smarts, appreciate the effort.
Definitely, the effort. And not himself, because tomorrow he is going to change, but if he understands that my actions are appreciated, he will continue doing good actions so that he gets more praise from the parents. And if he is getting enough of it from home, he won't look at only social media for getting validation.
Social media validation is actually the reverse. It is appreciating the person. You are great.
Exactly.
You are fantabulous. Whatever.
So that's why it is very short limited. No, today you get it, tomorrow's picture doesn't get those likes. So it's not a constant thing. Whereas at home, when you appreciate his efforts, it's going to be an ongoing thing. And that is the thing that parents have to understand.
But parents usually, when they want to build the self-esteem of their children, they usually say you are very smart, you're very intelligent.
I
Is that
say
a
don't
harmful-
say that. Say you are intelligent or you are very smart because of whatever you did. That will make him understand things a little more, and that will be generalized in his life rather.
No?
I think my voice will reach out. So, on the point on the mobile phones for child, I will just relate to my own child's experience. That she's 10-year-old and we didn't want to give her a cell phone, but everybody else, all the children had cell phones. So it came to a point that she had so much of peer pressure, so she was being ridiculed that you don't have, you're not this. Finally, we succumbed. So, what's the role of larger the parent?
It's also the child wanting to have a phone. At the same time, many parents feel that everybody has a phone. Why shouldn't my child have a phone as well? So parents also start thinking, am I not able to afford gift? So of course, if it's the need of the hour, like it's for safety, etc., you give the mobile. But you ensure, you have only Wi-Fi at home. You don't activate his internet pack, so that he doesn't use it outside home. You have certain apps which don't let you see things like Facebook, etc. Those are called privacy controls. You set those, install those in your child's phone, and the timing is important. How much time you give if the mobile can be his, but how much time you let him use it, that should be your decision.
If they're more tech savvy, they'll be able to come out of the auto privacy.
So
No, but I think
that's the way we have to
privacy
update ourselves.
controls, they will put privacy controls on your phone.
Definitely, that's going to happen.
Which will not
No,
be
but
able to-
actually the same thing goes, just like every child wants to have, because the other children have got a mobile, like the same thing, every child is on Facebook. So
Yes.
that also becomes a...
Definitely. That's what I said. Times are changing, and it's how we catch up to those times and how we ensure that our child doesn't go on the wrong path. But if you, from the beginning, you set enough rules, etc. for your child, had a democratic style of parenting from before, then definitely your adolescent will understand what is being done and why it is being done with you. So that's why it begins all at a very young age, not when your child is an adolescent. It should, obviously, these principles are meant to be followed from when your child is about 2 to 3 years of age, etc.
So you are saying it's a game of losing. It's to what extent we are losing.
I wouldn't say that. I would want to put it more positively.
अभी क्या करें? अब तो लेट हो गया.
We should have started talking about discussions of
Now we
yours.
can only react as a grandparent. We'll have to wait another 20 years for that.
Then there'll be another 4 generations.
Yes, there'll be two huge. By that time, there'll be many other styles of parenting which come up, and that parenting we'll be talking about all that. So coming to the
I think in this discussion of smartphone, what we are not doing so much is that in any discussion there is, like I split it into how much engine capacity you have for the journey and does your compass work well and tells you what's the north direction. So most of your slides are about teach the children, give them freedom but teach their moral values. As long as their north is correct,
definitely.
we don't have to worry about the engine power, like 50 horsepower पे जा रहा है 100 horsepower, right? Cell phone चाहे 10 घंटे ले, but they would be in the right direction.
Very correctly put, and that's what is important. I mean, today you don't give your child something because you think it's bad. He's going to get it from somewhere else. Like I said, you don't answer your child's question. He's going to find out the answer from internet. So you can't control what your child achieves nowadays. But instead of that, you can tell him, you can explain to him from a younger age so that he knows I have freedom, but I have to use it responsibly. Or what will be the consequences if I don't use it responsibly? And that's the training that you as parents will give to your own children.
They don't listen, that is the problem. If the training
That's
would be
very true.
useful, none of us would be here. The problem is that the training is not helping. The north is fine, but the problem we have to understand.
So then we need to know why your child is actually not following what you're telling. Maybe there is something else that is not being met. And I mean, talking about it from a serious point of view, there may be something that is actually bothering him and that is making him more defiant towards you. And it's not anybody's mistake. It can just be a small misunderstanding or something that he's not able to share with her. So the moment you actually sit down with your child and discuss these things more openly, I'm sure these things will be sorted out.
Actually, when in our time, when we used to have to converse with friends, there was only an MPNL and half the time it was not working. So nowadays, I've seen at many times that their WhatsApp has become the social media, and that's how the entire class is on WhatsApp. And if you take the phone away and you give it back to him after half an hour, 100 messages are there on WhatsApp.
Which is for
And they
us.
want to participate in that. And could be work, could be studies, could be anything else. But how do you take them away from this social? So it's not about mobile phone, it is the social connect. And the social connect these days is happening through mobile phones.
Yes, but we can't disconnect them from the social
That
network.
is the
That
problem.
very
The
important.
problem is that they're studying also and they know that.
So that's why if you set rules, like your mobile will not be with you when you are studying, no matter what, okay, you missed 100 messages, that's what one 13-year-old comes to me for internet addiction, tells me the moment I put my mobile away for 2 hours, you told me to study. When I looked at it, my school group had almost about 150 messages. Now what is it in those 150 messages? Most of them will be jokes, forwards. What if you skip them? You're not going to, lose out on something major. If it is something related to homework, I'm sure school authorities will be telling you. School authorities are not relying on WhatsApp, at least today, for passing on information. So this is what you explain to your child. If you set rules, that you can definitely use it, but after your studies or 1 hour before. That's what we tell parents. Like, he's using the computer. Instead of it being in his own room, you keep it in the hall or you keep it in the dining room so that you also have an idea as to what he's using.
It's a double whammy actually. The problem is that if you take the phone away from him and push him, no, you will not get the phone when you are studying. He might be sitting for 2 hours, but his mind will not be there. So that is the problem.
That depends on what the child is actually thinking he's losing out on. If you explain it very positively to him and he understands that I'm going to get the mobile but I have to complete my homework, I'm sure he'll be able to concentrate better. That's why I said, if you have a discussion with your child democratically, it will definitely be positive. It won't do you any harm.
Democracy is only on the other side.
But I think mainly it's also your own example, because most of us are expecting from children what we are not prepared to do ourselves.
Yes. So
So
you
if
are not
we-
giving up your mobile. Why should he?
And
He sees you seeing
if
your mobile.
if we are going on WhatsApp 100 messages, then
He will also want.
800 messages
You
are
have to
what
read what is happening in coffee and conversations.
I think
What's
the
happening?
solution to most of the problem is democratic style of parenting.
Definitely. Thank you for summing it.
I think that probably is the solution to
Like
most.
my son, he's 10 and a half. He loves video games like anything. So much so that he's decided he's going to become a video game designer. Thank you. When he grows up. So we both sit with him with set rules that you're getting only 30 minutes a day during the weekday, and on weekends you get 45-minute session morning, evening, and he knows the rules very, very well. And before he gets the iPad or the video game or anything, he is very clear that yes, I'm setting the alarm for 45 minutes, and as soon as the alarm goes off, I'm going to shut this off. And just when that 45-minute happens, the alarm just goes silent. And then, we keep reminding him, you're going above limit. And he sets all those rules, then there's penalty, then you'll not get next time. And we do that too. There are times that we've actually hidden the Wii console and he doesn't get it for a week. But even after doing all that, when it comes to giving up on video games, he's a totally different person. So he's a very well-behaved, otherwise. But when it comes to video games, he's a totally different person, and it becomes very difficult to handle him. So much
Of course, there will be individual differences in the child. This is the norm. That's what you said, rules child follows. But of course, there will be children who will be a little more difficult to handle in a particular situation. He might be very good in all other situations, but he's developed this obsessive liking for video games. So, of course, at that point of time, if it gets beyond your concern, that's when we can try and help the child. That's all I can say, because it's very difficult to give an individual help for somebody, because every child is different. Till we know the child, I cannot directly comment upon what you should do for your child, because I have not seen your child per se. Right?
Most of the issues that I hear also what you are talking about is basically relates to transaction. How do we really transact with our children when they are growing, right from the childhood to maybe even when they go to college and other places? We really do not transact the way it should be. We always think ourselves that we are parent, we are adult, and we were never child. So there are different stages of ego states which every human being has. Probably if we, as we said, that we should become friendly, try to understand, be close and all those things, only happens when you are really close to your child and you are understanding each and every ego state, and at that point of time, when he is child, you are also child. You are not all the time parent or an adult. If that kind of a behavior continues, then it's like, okay, I am adult, I don't want to listen to you, and that kind of transact. So I think development relates to more about how parents treat in relation to how the society is treating, like his friends, school associates, and many other people, how they treat. Now, wherever he feels comfortable, you say, okay, fine, let my parents go, I'm going to be with my friends and all that time, and that's the way he'll develop. So important, actually, what I see is, I mean, I have all my children are grown. So I can probably talk by experience is that, look, one has to be close and understanding. Why people, they say, I don't want to send my child who's just 12 years or 13 years just coming out of the school to study abroad, because we don't know what they will get into, maybe drugs, maybe wrong friends, and maybe all those things is probably a reason which is all the time there in mind of a parent, saying that they are still not independent, which is of course true. So what do they need? They need my help, assistance at time when it is required. But you need to allow them a space, you need to give them a freedom, you need to give them a mobile, and let them be free and understand that yes, the world is changing, so we also are changing. That's it.
Thank you. Yes.
See, my son is just, he's turning 12 this month. So I don't know when he throws tantrums or he does more than one thing from the list. So I don't know whether it's still childishness or it's actually precocious puberty which is taking place. So I am actually scared to fix very stern rules because I don't know if it backfires. If he closes himself or doesn't share, which he actually does a bit, and he always says, Papa ko mat batana, means he's scared of him. So I think if I am a little soft in bargain and he's actually open to me, so does that work? One parent being
One parent will always be closer, but if you keep that in his mindset, then he also understands that mom is very vulnerable. I can get anything done from my mother.
Does that.
So again, that is going to get backfire from you. So if your husband is being strict, he's being strict for a reason. So I think we should understand that it can't always be that one parent is soft, because the child will take undue advantage of that as he grows older.
No, don't.
So as we said, that parents can have different opinions, but don't let your child perceive this. Don't let it be very evident to your child, because he will take undue advantage of that.
Yeah, but then I'm not sure where to put the rules, because I think that at least he's opening to me, he's sharing things, and he doesn't do that to the father. And both of
So
us.
when you have to listen, when he has to share, you obviously can be there. But rule setting is something totally different from sharing, right? And you don't have to be very strict in setting rules. So if you, obviously do it and discuss it with him, don't make him feel you're doing it very strictly. That's all I can say.
Okay, and then one more thing. They are watching certain channels. Maybe it's not Hindi. And certainly it's a Star World serial, and certainly some scenes come up. So then you just fringe in your seats, and you don't know whether to change the channel or whether to accept it as a normal thing so that he'll share later.
But if you change the channel tomorrow, the same thing is going to happen when you're not at home. So
or else he can open into internet to some other websites and he can check out things. So I don't know how open to be in such matters, and culturally it's different. I mean, we cannot be so
That's what I mean. You can't give one general advice to everybody, because it also depends on how your household is. How open are you discussing these things with your
So
children?
we are generally conservative people, and given the openness of the atmosphere, the environment today, I don't know how to strike that balance so that we can still be open, sharing, and still, be that bit of strictness.
At the end of it, you have to remember that if you stop him also tomorrow, he is going to get it from somewhere.
I know. So
somewhere else.
how much
So
freedom
rather,
is
he
a
has to
positive
start
freedom?
understanding what is good for him at this age, and there are some things he has to understand he might not get now, but he will get when he is a little older. If you give that understanding to your child, most of these problems can be solved.
Okay. So the storm has set in, so it has to settle down. Okay, thank you.
So can I continue?
Yeah, I think please continue.
So there are, as I said, most mental health problems or most mental illnesses or psychological problems actually begin in adolescence. 50% of our psychological problems begin in adolescence, so before the age of 14. So if you look at anxiety disorders, if you look at mood disorders, this proportion is very significant. So if in adolescence you understand there's something called as social anxiety, social phobia, depression, these things begin before adolescence. So we have to understand that yes, the child can be suffering from what is called as depression, or the child can have social anxiety. So if we are aware that, see, if you look at proportions, no, if you look at incidence, anxiety disorder affects almost 13% of adolescents, which I think is a huge number. Mood disorders occur in 6%, substance use disorders occur in 2%. So this is something that I want you all to be aware of. So there are two types of disorders. I think we, not that your children will be suffering from it, but we have to be aware of some things that are happening. So there are something called as externalizing disorders, and there is something called as internalizing. Externalizing means the child expresses it. It's very visible to everybody. So children deal with problems by acting out. So this causes more problems to the people around the child rather than the child himself. So there is something called as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which we diagnose in younger children, hyperactive children, etc. Oppositional defiant disorder, antisocial personality disorder. These are examples of acting out, externalizing disorder. Then there is a subset which is called as internalizing disorder, which I think are more dangerous because it's not very evident. It's not, you can't pick it up that easily. Children deal with their problems internally. So this causes more distress to the child, not to the ones around the child. So these are examples are depression, anxiety, suicidal attempts, self-injurious attempts, and eating disorders. So these are things that you have to be common of because 50% of adolescents do suffer from these conditions. So we divide psychological problems into emotional problems, which are anxiety, depression, obsessive compulsive disorder. Again, is a very common disorder that begins in adolescence actually. Behavioral problems, the child is very defiant, child is not listening to authority figures. If it goes beyond a particular level, we do diagnose it, and there is definitive treatment also. So there is oppositional defiant disorder, conduct disorder, substance abuse, internet addiction, which is slowly picking up. Academic problems, sudden decline in interest in studies, they don't know what to do with their careers. And adjustment problems like relationship issues, conflict with parents, etc. So now the last few slides, I'd like to talk about how internet is affecting not only our children, but all of us. So I think this applies not only to us as parents, but as to all of us as adults as well. So I want you to quickly read the next slide and tell me, read out what is written in the slide. Quickly. Sorry? Okay, I think you took a good look at it. So how many of you actually read it as Paris in the Spring, Once in a Lifetime, Bird in the Hand? Yes. So look at it closely now. It is actually Paris in the spring, once in a lifetime, bird in the hand. So this shows that we have become very reflexive. There is something called as reflexiveness and reflectiveness. So because we are using gadgets so much, what has internet done to all of us? It has made us very reflexive. We tend to respond very quickly, very fast. We are also becoming more impulsive. Whereas reflectively means actually taking time to look at it, read properly. If you give it a good half a minute, you'll understand it's Paris in the spring, once in a lifetime. But I think most of the people, I think only she got it right. So this is what internet has done to all of us, not only to our children. So why do children suffer from internet addiction? What are they seeing? Their parents are on the phone. So obviously the child has a feeling that he wasn't conceived, he's downloading probably. So what is internet addiction? As I said, it also is diagnosed. This is now a diagnosable condition. We do diagnose it as psychiatrists, and there is a definitive treatment for it as well. It's a diagnosable disorder. Prevalence actually, when you look at it globally, it's highest in Asian countries, especially in India, Japan, China. It's found to be highest, maybe because of the video games addiction. Especially in adolescent males, 12 to 20 years. So your adolescents are definitely vulnerable and at risk because that is the most common age to develop this. It is actually an escape mechanism to avoid real or perceived problems. Many times when we look at adolescents or adults who suffer from internet addiction, they do have what we call as social anxiety, depression, etc., anxiety problems. They are actually suffering from other psychological problems, and internet addiction looks to be on the surface. Low self-esteem, social phobia, depression, these were most commonly found in people who suffered from internet addiction. So when we treat it, we don't only treat the internet addiction, we actually target the interior, the actual problem behind it. So what are warning signs of internet addiction? You can look at it yourself whether you are actually approaching it or whether these are visible in your adolescence. Preoccupation with the internet. Internet means any screen as well. Preoccupation, you keep on thinking about it. Increasing amount of time you are spending every day, more and more time with your phones, etc. Repeated unsuccessful efforts to control. Restlessness, moodiness, depression or irritability when attempting to cut down or use of internet. Angry and resentful if advised to stay off. Online longer than originally intended. Child tells you I'll stay only for 1 hour and stays for more than 2-3 hours. Educational social issues, the academics are dropping, he's not going out with his friends as much because of he's using the internet. Lies to conceal the extent of involvement. When you ask him how many hours, he says 1 hour, but you know he's been on it for 3-4 hours. And as an escape from problems. So we say when most of these are fulfilled, when say about 6 of these are fulfilled, definitely he has the potential to develop internet addiction. Also for adults. Yes. So why is it that many times parents come and tell me my child is actually very intelligent? I ask him, how do you know? I mean, we haven't done the IQ, how do you know? So they say he can do anything on the mobile. He can, unlock the mobile on his own. My 2-year-old child, unlock the iPad, use any app that even I don't understand. So is it a sign of intelligence? I mean, we have done research on this, and definitely using of mobiles, using of gadgets is not definitely a sign of intelligence. When we do the IQ test, we realize, then they say he's only poor in academics, but he's very good with internet, etc. So when we do the IQ, the IQ is actually very low. I mean, 70 or lower is considered bad, poor IQ, it's lower. So then they ask us, but why is he using the internet more? So this is a concept. There is digital natives and digital immigrants, and this is because of the gap. So our generation, even mine, I mean everybody who was born before the 1990s, I think, who we didn't have digital or mobiles when we were born. So we are called as digital immigrants because we were not born in it. Now we have acquired it. So we are immigrants basically. So we have adopted to this new technology. But what about our children? What about today's generation? They are digital natives. They are born in it. So it obviously every child, irrespective of his IQ, irrespective of the exposure, first time you give a mobile also, they may be able to operate it very well. That's because they are digital natives. They are born in a generation, so obviously times have changed, the brains of these children have changed, so they know to use the computer practically from their birth. So this is something that you should have in it, and not keep in mind that, okay, my child is very good with internet and with gadgets, so that means he's very intelligent. They're two different concepts altogether. So of course there will come a time when life now, as we say, was much easier when Apple and BlackBerry were just fruits. Or hi, how was your school? And you ask your child, and your child will say, read about it on my Facebook blog or on my Twitter, etc. So I hope times like this don't come, or maybe they have come already. So last 2-3 slides. What is with today's generation? With, as we said, we are more online than offline. Even we are closer to people, I think, on WhatsApp, etc. more than people around us. This is the truth of life. So with how many individuals does a growing adolescent actually communicate? There is difference between connecting and communicating. Connecting is, he connects to 1,000 people because he has 1,000 people on Facebook. But how many is he actually communicating to? How many is he talking to, sharing his problems, etc. So in today's world, there is definitely more connectivity. But communication has reduced because of that, definitely. So reducing levels of communication with people you know today, because you're all the time online, you're not even talking to the ones around you. Growing connectivity with people you do not know. They tell their Facebook friends everything. That's because they're always updating their personal life on Facebook. Youngsters are emotionally investing with unknown people. We have adolescents coming to us, they've dated, or they say they've been having an affair with whom? With a Facebook friend. They may probably not even met that friend before. So obviously they are actually emotionally investing with unknown people, which of course is very dangerous and risky. There is unexpected high levels of connectivity but very limited communication. This is today's world. Relationship issues are also dealt with us very often nowadays. That's because how do adolescents look at relationships? When we talk to adolescents, they think it's at 12, 13, it's okay to have a relationship. They're more liberal, they're more sexual also actually, more casual. They are involved in multiple relationships. They're short lasting. Romantic relation starts much earlier. So this is happening in today's world, and parents have to be aware. So setting limits, as I spoke earlier, limits about dating, talking to them about all these at a younger age will prevent them from getting into relationship problems. So what is your role as a parent? Of course, the main important thing is we have been discussing, help build your child's self-esteem, help them to cope with any kind of shyness, aggression that they are having. Coping with peer pressure, bullying, because bullying is also one of the common complaints we get from children. Sometimes parents come and tell us, my child is suddenly very shy, not talking, refusing to go to school, we don't know what has happened. So when we talk to the child, there are episodes of bullying in today's world, in today's schools also. Help them develop a good body image from the beginning. Help them to understand the value of money and internet safety from the beginning. So be available for your adolescent. I think, as you pointed out, the most important thing is definitely being available emotionally. You may not be there physically all the time, but being emotionally available and giving your child the sense that my parent is very much there is the most important factor. So to conclude, parenting is actually a science and an art. There is no way I can tell you all this is the way you all have to parent your child. It is different. You have to develop your own sense of parenting. What we have discussed are all just theoretical things, are all things we have to be aware of. But ultimately, it's based on your child. If your child is different from your neighbor's child, you can't have the same style of parenting. As parents of adolescents, learn to let go. As we spoke earlier, let go of the best friend forever concept. It's not going to remain anymore. They're not going to be friends. They're not going to be spending time with you, but they will ultimately come back to you at some stage of life. The challenge is how you can stay lovingly and meaningfully connected to your teen and remain available. As adolescents, gradually you see them going apart from you, but still give them the feeling that my parents are very much there. But watch out for warning signs of depression, anxiety, social phobia, internet addiction. Be aware and watch out for these signs so that you can detect them at an early age. So some quotes that I really like about parenting. It's not only children who grow. As parents, we are growing as well. As much as we want to see what our children are doing with their lives, they are actually watching us. So it's very easy to tell them do this. But if you do it yourself, they are going to learn it more, in a better way. I can't tell my children to reach for the sun. All I can do is reach for it myself. So maybe, always telling him might not do, but you follow it. Your child is more likely to follow it himself. Parents are the ultimate role models for the child. Many times you say peer pressure, peer pressure, peer pressure, but it's not that. And every word, movement and action has an effect. No other person or outside force has a greater influence on your child than yourself, than your parents. So, stop saying that my child is exposed to all this. Ultimately, you are his role model. That's the truth. It may come and go, but definitely you have the most influence on your child because you are his parent. So children are great imitators. Give them something great to imitate. And last, just about my clinic. I'm running this clinic called as ICGC, Enlarged Child Guidance Clinic at Sakinaka, which is a one-stop center for emotional, behavioral, academic adjustment problems of children and adolescents. So this is our clinic, which is at Sakinaka. We have me as a psychiatrist, we have psychologists, clinical psychologists, career counselors, special educators. So we want to ensure that our clinic is a one-stop center for all problems of children and adolescents. And some of the things that we do at our clinic, therapies, remediation for the illness part and also for the wellness part, helping adolescents cope with all these problems that we discussed. So there is a small video that I want to before I end. Okay, a little bit of career counseling because many parents ask me this question and many parents are confused because now 10th, 12th exams are over and we don't know what career the child should choose. So why is it important that you choose the right career? Why your child chooses the right career? Obviously so that they use their potentials in the right path. They feel competent and useful at their workplace. They have job satisfaction. They are away from demotivation and depression and achieve overall prosperity and success. So what all do you think is important in choosing a child's career? Basically, there are psychometric tests that help us to determine what career your child should choose. So these are the things that we do. There are standardized tests and we make an interpretation of the results of these tests and ultimately we give what is the recommended career for the child. So you should keep in mind that the career depends on a lot of factors like his interest, his aptitude. He may have interest in medicine, but if he doesn't have the aptitude, he might not be a good doctor. Personality plays an important role and also his IQ and overall intelligence plays an important role while choosing his career. So at the end of it, somebody was saying before we started off, I wish there was a guide on parenting or I wish there was manuals on parenting. Unfortunately, there is no manual because every child is different. So you'd have to make a manual for each child, which is not physically possible. So don't waste time in trying to read stuff. It's better obviously that we do it practically. So just to sum it, there is a video that I would like to play which basically sums up what parenting is all about.
माइक रख लो इसके सामने ना.
This is actually a true story. This was shot in Olympics some years ago. So the athlete here is Derek Bateman, who was actually a very good athlete. He ran for 100 meters, 200 meters and won the first prize. So now is the 400 meters race and everybody thought he would win. Everybody knew. So what happens in the race? when the child needs you, you are there, and if you notice last 100 meters, he lets go. He lets the child, the person continue the race on his own. So that's the stage, you're always there for your child, but when the child is doing something on his own or when he's an adolescent, you learn to let go. That's the video I wanted to conclude on. Thank you very much for being a very interactive and good audience.
We can take some questions now, we have some time.
You had mentioned about career counseling, like suppose, so what is the ideal age, like after 10th or before 10th?
Before 10th is generally we recommend it after the 9th standard, just before the child enters 10th. So he has a fair idea as to, in which field. But we also do it after the 12th or even after engineering at times when after engineering child doesn't know what to do. So after 13 and a half, at any point of time you can do the career counseling for the child.
Okay, and an offbeat question, like my elder one is a special kid, he's got autism. So I've seen changes in him, like hair growth and his voice. He's a non-verbal child.
How old is
So he's 12 and a half years.
Okay.
So this year I'm seeing changes, and he's not toilet trained also. But that aggression, or he gets, like he used to bite his hand, but now not every time. But suppose he's not getting, like he's a very foodie person. So he's not getting what he wants. So he'll just hit the person next to him. It's just momentary. So I'm just asking, my question is, is it going to be the same bracket like how you said 4-5 years? Like because he's a special kid.
Yes, of course, special children also undergo puberty or undergo adolescence the same as
So what
normal
signs
children
or
do.
how do I
Only
prepare
thing is that
myself?
in adolescence, aggression is already more. You must be knowing well about autism by now. So in autism, one common condition, one common clinical feature is aggression. Even when the child is 2.5, 3, they are more aggressive. So we do use medication for children with autism if the aggression is a little bit more, because in normal adolescence it's a little easier to counsel them, to help them to control their behavior. But because children with autism have a limited intellectual ability, it's difficult to do counseling. Behavior therapy, early intervention, occupational
All
therapy,
therapies
all
are going
must
on.
have been done. But there is a role of medication. If we feel aggression is a little more, we do use medication for children with autism. Which definitely
Hyperness and also
yes,
reduces
definitely.
speed.
Because they will be more hyperactive, aggressive, impulsive than normal children.
And is it going to calm them? Suppose medication is one role, but the bracket which you had mentioned, so is it going to be the same for special kids? Or
Definitely.
they're going
It
to
may even last
calm?
longer. It may
They
last.
may calm, like,
They
after
may
few
calm,
years.
but if it is not only because of their adolescence, if it's a part of his autism per se, then it will not calm down without medication. But if it is only because he is an adolescent right now, it will calm down, but it will definitely take longer and be a little more intense than in a normal child.
And another one, nowadays, it's not just whatever you have, so I'm understanding. So, and I have my friends who have kids and teens. But my younger one, he's 7 years. That independence and all nowadays it's coming much before.
Yes.
It's not just adolescent, it's coming 4 years, I don't want to catch your hand, or I'm big enough, I can do this, I can go down.
That's what we spoke of it earlier, not adolescence or not puberty, but definitely many of the other things are happening at a younger age. Like, of course, wanting to be more independent is happening at a much younger age than before.
My question is something on similar lines. I have a pre-teen daughter who acts up. I know the reasons for her acting up. But my younger one also looks on her as a role model and tries to imitate her behavior.
So that always happens when you have two children. Of course, the younger child achieves all that maturity much earlier, and he's imitating.
And she's just 5 years old.
Yes.
So I'm concerned how she will be when she is actually a preteen or a teenager.
Definitely, but that is going to happen because she's seeing her. Yeah, so the important thing is how she sees you react to your elder daughter.
Yeah,
She
we
sees-
need emotional coaching actually to deal with them. We don't have emotional intelligence to handle this thing. We also act on impulse.
Yes. So of course then that's what your younger daughter is seeing. Not only how her elder sister is behaving, but also how my parents are reacting to my elder sister. If you are okay when she throws a temper tantrum, she'll think it's okay and she'll do it as well herself.
Right. Okay.
So this test which you do, the psychometric and the aptitude test, it is once in a lifetime or maybe at 14, 15 then you do it again and...
No, we don't generally repeat it unless, of course, we do it at 13 and a half or 14, you do it and then, you know, he chooses a career and you want some more guidance, then you don't need to repeat all the tests, but maybe an aptitude can be done at a later stage. You don't need to repeat the IQ per se, because IQ will definitely not play such an important role later on.
So at this stage you do both the aptitude and the IQ
Yes.
test, both
Yes.
the tests. And you need to do a booking for this or...
Yeah, you can take an appointment at the clinic.
In the case of siblings often have the rivalry and it's very difficult for the parents to take sides because everybody has their own interpretation. So what do you suggest should be the role of
That parents definitely don't take anybody's side and you ensure that both your children feel that they are equally loved. Because when we talk to children, either of the child, when two children are brought to me, brother and sister, each child says my mother loves my brother more, my mother loves my father loves my brother more. That's the feeling that they have. So we don't want them to have that feeling. That is how you react with your children. But even if you do a fair job, they are going to believe that and sibling rivalry is going to happen. And that, as we said, is a part of all growing up and generally after some time the sibling rivalry wears off and then they are the best friends that they can.
And one of the reasons is probably we apply our old knowledge. See, I was good with my brother, my sisters and all. So we tend to apply that this will work this generation. But probably it's not, right? I mean,
Definitely it's
what's your indication?
It's not. Things are changing and I think even if you think you were good with your brother sister, I'm sure you all had your share of ups and downs, your share of fights. I don't think there is any brother sister who did not fight at all.
We used to fight every day.
Exactly, that's selective memory.
So there was like the sharing element is not there. So everybody looks self-centered. So you think that's a common practice
Yes,
everywhere? And
that is definitely.
we should continue to, that's how it is.
Yes, it's going to be. So sibling rivalry will happen, however you treat both your children. But it will be as long as they are not, overboard and getting physically aggressive, etc. As long as it's just verbal or, normal, then you can leave it. But when it gets to the point of physical aggression, obviously you intervene.
I guess, yeah, wonderful, extremely wonderful session, Dr. Manjari. I think a big round of applause for Dr. Manjari. And she's come here the second time now, and she's also volunteered to come again and have a session for the adolescents.
Yeah.
So I guess,
can include also emotional intelligence in that. Yes.
So it will be only for adolescents or with parents?
No, not with parents. Nobody will be listening to me, they'll be fighting with their own friends. See, I told you, I don't want that scenario.
So, when she was talking, I got reminded of the fact that about a couple of months ago, I asked my child, how can I be a better father? I said, tell me something, because I used to ask my wife, how can I be a better husband? Then she'll say, how can I be a better wife? So let's extend this logic to children. So I asked my child, I said, how can I be a better father? She says, Papa, I see you on the cell phone all the time. And this was what she said. It was shocking for me to hear this, because I used to think I'm a very nice, decent guy. I'm not addicted to internet. I'm very good. I think I'm a great guy. And this happened to me, and it just had such a sobering impact. And I became more conscious of the fact that I'm not all that great I think I am. And children noticing me. And when I tell them impose limitations, they say, Papa, but you are always on the phone. So I think now I have changed. And when I asked them again this time, I said, tell me, how can I be a better father? They say, Papa, you're not now spending too much time on the phone, and you're spending more time with us. But very often, when I'm spending time with them, they say, you're not looking at us, you're doing something else, you're multitasking. So I never knew that men also multitask. I thought women multitask. But I guess men, when they start talking to their children, unless they're mindfully present with their children, they tend to multitask. And they, in some sense, trivialize the conversation having with children, because they think, this I can, a small part of my brain can handle it. Let the larger part of the brain be occupied in much more intellectual, serious stuff. So I'm taking away a lot of learnings from this conversation, and I'm glad that she's going to have one more session for, for the welfare for our community, for our country, if I can generalize it. And I wish many more such initiatives were taken. Thanks for your generosity and your support. And with that, I also, can't, feel in saying there's one more generosity or support that we've got this time is from HDFC Bank, Chandivali branch, and they actually sponsored, this entire program. And I would request Kranti, who is the branch manager at HDFC Chandivali branch, to just come and say a few words.
Well, it's a great opportunity to be here, to meet you all, see you all on a Sunday, because you all work on weekdays, we all work on weekdays. So it's for you difficult to come to the bank. So we're here just to share, we are the nearest branch to you. And Coffee with Conversation, I thought is the right medium to come and talk to you guys. So you're welcomed at the branch. We have a preferred Imperia portfolios at my branch now. We have increased the ATM strength at the branch. So we are trying our best to serve you better. So taking forward what Dr. Manjari said, she has spoken to you on a mental and physical health of children. So as a banker, as a financial people, we can advise you how to how to grow their financial health. So we are talking about Kids Advantage account, where you can open an account for your children and show them banking. We give ATM debit cards to children through that account. So that's one we are talking about, and investment policy. So I don't want to talk much about the products here. This is just to have an introductory chat. You're most welcome at the branch. Talk to my staff, talk to us, and get to know more about it. So just wanted to thank Mr. Manish and Mr. Gurdeep and Mr. Mazhar, who has helped us come through this medium and meet you all guys. So thank you so much. We look forward to continue such things in future. Thank you.
Okay, just one more minute. Thank you, Manjari. Thank you, Kranti, for your help. And Manjari, that was an excellent talk. I think every one of us will be taking something or the other from here. And with this, we come to the end of our today's coffee and conversation session. Also, as I had mentioned, whatever you wish to contribute, you can do it the way we were doing it earlier or as a lump sum amount. We are very thankful for all of you who have been contributing for this coffee and conversations, and we want to take it forward and make it more and more useful for all of us. And since the last program, we also started videography of our programs, and what we intend is that probably the fourth, or because this program is monthly, the other 3 Sundays or 2 Sundays in a month, we could have the repeat of this program in somebody's house, so that people who have not been able to attend this program could attend it. So we'll be asking for your responses in this connection, so that everybody is benefited. We don't want to lose whatever we have got here, so that people who have not been able to attend these talks should come. But then that should not be an excuse for not coming here, because that would be then
But you can put it in the YouTube, right?
No, we don't want to put, because there could be some other issues. So as of now,
If the speaker agrees, we can put, otherwise.
yeah, the speaker has to agree. But we can have these small sessions. Actually, right now, what that we on a Sunday at the same time, 11:30 to 1 o'clock, we can do this show in somebody's house, and we could also get the speaker if he's available for that time. It depends on their availability, but otherwise, at least the people could have a look-see.
So one is someone else's house, or we could use webinar where there's strict user ID password for that 1.5 hours. There are methods to do it.
Yeah, we'll find others. So it's just a thought process. We are also evolving, we are also learning. So thank you, HDFC, Kranti and your team, and thank you, Dr. Manjari, once again. Thank you.